Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to talk about lore. It's actually been a long time since we've done a lore focused video, but we're right now on the Old World website. And as you may be aware, this website is the official website for Warhammer the Old World. This was supposed to be our central hub, but it hasn't really been updated in a decent amount of time. It's mostly just promoting the start boxes for the Bretonnians and the Tomb Kings. And if we go down to the very bottom, there is an interactive map which originally we spoke about during the launch of the Old World. It's actually quite cool. You're able to click on certain icons. It's got a fair amount of land going all the way up to the Southlands. Not the whole thing, but enough there. The Darklands and pretty much just Norsca to the north. There's a lot. You can click on some icons and it'll give you some information regarding certain factions. This was getting an update every Arcane Journal launch, all the way up to the Greenskins. That means that the Dwarfs and the Warriors of Chaos have not been updated onto the website. You can see some markers representing them, mostly the Dwarf stuff, but they're not clickable, they don't have any information, which is absolutely bizarre. Because at the end of the day, this website was a very big info dump section for anyone interested in the lore like myself. Now, why are we talking about this? Well, it's actually because despite the fact that Games Workshop said originally that everything was going to focus around the Old World itself, there has been a very big lore update. You see, quite recently there was a Arcane Journal for the Warriors of Chaos, and the Arcane Journal had a pretty big map update that we're going to discuss. I've been able to find an image online. It's not the best quality, but I do have the physical right in front of me, so we'll be able to talk about a pretty big number of things here, because there have been some lore changes. And not only that, but it goes against some stuff that Games Workshop said originally, I think. So here's the map, and as you can see, yep, it's not the best quality. It's the best that I could do. I'm sorry, guys. But, yeah, Norsca was mapped out. Again, weird that we haven't seen that on the main website, considering that Norsca is heavily represented in the Arcane Journal. This is something like the Wolves of the Sea and the new character, Fridal. But the big push here is that, yeah, the Northern Chaos Waste, at least a fair chunk of it, has been mapped out. Which is pretty bizarre considering that, one, Games Workshop have said that the focus itself was going to be around the Old World, which, you know, that's the Empire, Kislev, Norsca, the Southern Realms, the Border Princes, a little bit of the Badlands and the Worldjez Mountains. And two, they've gone with the whole thing of, yeah, you know, there's no dedicated tribes. But the thing is, the further up north that you go, the more that you start to see that there's dedicated tribes. Because in the Northern Chaos Waste, as you can see, it starts fragmenting and merging with the Realms of Chaos itself. Now, it's very important to note that Warhammer Fantasy maps have always been very inconsistent, even within the same edition. But it is safe to assume, since this is the new edition, this is the new setting, that this is the proper map. And it does look like this is the big map that the staff members at Games Workshop were painting originally. That would have been the person who's now Rogue Hobbies and so on. So it wasn't just the Old World, it looks like a lot of the world was being fleshed out. But yeah, let's talk about a few things because I think that this is quite important. So we'll start off with Norsca, and not a lot has actually been changed. What we do see is there's major tribes, so obviously the Greyling, the Varg, and the Sol tribes, that's kind of expected, and we do have two holds for what is essentially the Northern Dwarfs. I'm only going by the big icons, by the way. There are a few mentions of other tribes, and obviously different holds for the North Dwarfs, so you can see Krakadrak and so on, which is pretty cool, actually. I'm actually quite happy. It's really weird, you know, they've gone into the detail that they still exist, but no mention of that. Maybe for a future Arcane Journal. One thing that I do notice, though, is that the Altar of the Crimson Harvest, which is an altar dedicated to Khorne, is more or less where it should be, but, like, it has changed. Total War Warhammer, for example, is actually closer to Troll Country. Now, don't keep Total War Warhammer as gospel there, because the map is very much distorted. But there have been various different representations with the altar being away. So first up, this goes against the whole thing that Games Workshop said that there's no dedicated tribes, because yes, the altar is dedicated to Khorne. It actually ends up being part of the Sal and the scaling, and it is very much where you can expect Khorne monogod warriors. Other stuff remains the same, like where the Bjorlings are, it's a minor tribe. There's a lot of Beastmen icons, actually, in Norsca. I wasn't expecting that many. But one thing that it does show, and this is against a lot of representation that a lot of people seem to think that Norsca is just this cold, barren, frigid area. No, there's trees. There's a lot of trees, which is actually quite good to further reinforce. You know, there's a reason that people live there, and it's a big push towards why not all Norskans are going out and crazy and, you know, chaos corrupted. They are, like, tainted because they worship those gods, but they're not just as bad as people think they are. It is weird that the free icons are there and we don't get any other information about who's leading them and so on. Obviously, this is something that needs to be put into the interactive map, but it does look like clickable icons. They're all pretty much just undivided though, so don't expect big changes there. It's a bit of a shame, actually. Alright, and now we're going to jump into the actual new territory that we haven't seen on the maps before. Well, we kind of have in older representation, but some things have changed. This is the Northern Chaos Waste, and we're going to dive into section by section, so one page and then the other page. So on the left-hand side, it's pretty barren, as you can imagine. There's not really that much there. What we do see is that the Argol and the Kelvin tribe are still there. There's not too many changes. There's a bit of movement, though, like, for example, the Tower of Torment and stuff like that has been moved around. It's pretty weird. I wonder why stuff like that is being moved. There has to be some sort of reason, because I imagine that the Games Workshop staff would be looking at previous reference points. It's still pretty cool to see that, because obviously the Eternal Lagoons are there, the Shardlands, everything is pretty much in this section now. It looks pretty cool. It actually does look very, very cool. Not a lot of push towards what would be, say, for example, you know, where are the monogod tribes and stuff like that, barring the sections that you already know from previous lore, like the whole Silver Tower of Sorcerers being for Tzeentch, and so on, right? Okay, now the second page, which is really interesting, mostly because we see a few things, right? So the Garhar tribes are there, the Hastelings are still there, the Dolgum tribes, they're not the Dolgan, the Dolgum, and also the Tong are there too, which is really, really cool. The Tong themselves are generally seen closer to Cathay, being their own kind of culture. They're not really Dolgans, they're not really Norscan, they're supposed to be very terrifying. So already we're getting some interesting stuff. The Forge of Souls is still there, which is pretty good. Karak Dam has been moved way forward to all the representation. It was generally closer to, say, for example, the Darklands and Kislev, but now it's very far up and it's isolated too, meaning that, yeah, there's nobody there anymore. That's just pretty much demons. It's honestly pretty weird that the Tong icon is here more than anything else. Maybe they got plans to talk about the Tong a little bit more. It could be that we're going to get another novel. It's been almost a year and we've still only got that freaking Bretonnia one, which isn't great in its own regard. But this is the full map at the time of recording this video. As you can see, I was able to find a online version, which is a little bit better. There's a little white mark in the middle, but at the end of the day, everything is compliant, and I've scaled it down. It does look like we have a fair chunk of the northern part of the world now. Obviously not everything in terms of the Northern Chaos Waste. You can see that there's a pretty empty spot there, which is supposedly on the right-hand side supposed to be more parts of Kislev. Remember that Kislev was much larger now before the whole Great War Against Chaos, which decimated them. This is all the map stuff that we do have in regards to the official stuff. So that's linked up to the Southlands, which there's a fair chunk of the Southlands, a little bit of the Dragon Isles, and a lot of Araby down there. Well, not all of it, but you know there's quite a bit. A little bit of Albion too, which is quite nice. Yeah, there is a lot. It does make me believe that, yes, Games Workshop originally went with a whole plan of that, and now they're expanding upon it. I don't think the expansion has come now, by the way. Keep in mind that this stuff is usually printed, I think, 6 months before a release. That's generally how the leaks have gone, I guess. But they're clearly fleshing out the world quite heavily. Again, nice to see the Tong, nice to see a lot of other stuff. The world is looking nicer. It's a shame that we don't have this in the interactive map to play around with it. Oddly enough, and I've only just noticed this, where Kislev and the Northern Chaos Waste meet, the Hobgoblin Carnet is missing. Really strange there, isn't it? They're actually there in the original map, which is why I've just, you know, deleted over that section from that using the eraser tool. Maybe they've got plans, maybe they don't. We're going to have to wait and see. My big question is, why are they going so far up with the map, going into the Northern Chaos Waste, when right now the story isn't doing that? The Arcane Journal for the Warriors of Chaos, again, focused on Norsca. It would have been nice to have just a large, detailed picture of Norsca, if anything else. So now for some speculation. Clearly, when it comes to the other books that are missing, we're expecting some extra land. I think that we'll probably get a proper mapped out Orth one, if it's the case that the High Elf stuff is going to focus a little bit there. I do imagine so, because it's usually 2 armies of infantry. It's very heavily hinted recently in the roadmaps that the first one is going to be the Northern Sea Patrol, but I imagine something a little bit closer to home is going to be the second. So yeah, I'm expecting that. Beastmen, I guess we will just populate the standard there. Maybe that's why they've gone a little bit with Norska and the Northern Chaos Waste to show Beastmen up there too. Wood Elves would remain pretty much where we see them, so I'm expecting a little bit of Wolf One, and maybe they'll start talking about Lauren Forest, but I doubt we'll see an Eoneer Army of Infamy just yet. Mind you, it would be freaking cool. It would be nice to get the Meadow Chariots back, hopefully in plastic, and then, well, the Empire, nothing there. But yeah, they're definitely planning something. Kislev is centered there wherever we get Kislev. When we get Kislev and Cafe, they'll probably start, like, properly fleshing out the right-hand side of the map. We see a little bit of the Mountains of Morn already, so that's clearly preparing for going into Cafe, which I expect Cafe before Kislev. It just kind of makes sense story-wise if they're going by the original lore. Where the original lore basically is Asavakul goes down into Cafe, destroys a city, and then turns around and goes into Kislev. I'm not sure why. I don't know if there was any big push there, but I mean, it kind of makes sense to do that as a way to introduce it. I don't think that they're going to change stuff around. But yeah, just a little fun talk about lore updates or lack thereof properly from Games Workshop. It just seems very halfway done. Hopefully they can update the website at some point. I guess they're busy with the whole Warcom update and also the main website. It's been a while for the main website, but it's still pretty freaking awful. So yeah. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of discussion. Just want to talk about some lore today because, I mean, you know, it's a cool map. It's a really cool map.